Hello, fans. The Vegas Baby Show is back. Gotta take a couple days off, and I can't talk. Blah, 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 blah. First of all, I want to thank you all for supporting me. It's just been a few bumps in the road in Lenny's life. What's new, right? If there isn't shit happening, it's not my life, right? So that's okay. Today, I'm gonna just tell a story. Not really up for a song. I'm honestly, I haven't been that up the last couple days to try to make people happy, but I'm like, you know what? Show business people have to go on with the show, like Ethel Merman said. Must go on with the show. That's what you're gonna get. But so I'm back, and I'm gonna leave the bad crap behind right now. First of all, do you remember in the beginning of the shows, my first show about 2 weeks ago? My first or second show, I talked about how I can't tell a joke. I can't. But I heard a joke the other day that I'm pretty sure I could tell. So let's see if it works, okay? So this cheeseburger walks into a bar and sits down. The bartender yells, "Hey, pal, we don't serve food here." Boom, boom. Hey, what do you think? Huh? Thumbs up, thumbs down. You let me know. But and I also wanted to mention this really cool story. You know what? I'll tell it at the end. So, and tomorrow there's going to be a guest. Yes, I'm gonna have a guest. You wait. I'm pretty sure I told you that in the first show that I might have guests popping in and out. Tomorrow there will be my first guest. So, and I'm not telling you who. So you're gonna have to watch. Hey, gotta get viewers. And have you subscribed to my station yet? I think I only have 19, so I know you all haven't. What's up? Okay, so today's story is a long time ago. It's about Bill and I, who my favorite subject, so I thought I'd stay on my favorite subject, who is obviously Bill. And this was back in, I want to say, probably 1983-ish. And we lived in Palatine at the time, and we owned this yellow Datsun that, you know what, we bought used cars at that time because we were just like, you know what, we just didn't want to have car payments and stuff like that. So, back then you could get pretty decent used cars, but this one was quite interesting. So we had the yellow Datsun, okay, and we decided, Bill's like, I got a great idea. We were big into camping. I had mentioned that before. So we decided to take a week and go to the Smokey Mountains in Tennessee. I'm like, all right, cool. So we had all the gear. We had the nice tent. We didn't have our screen-in porch yet. But because of this trip, we ended up getting a screened-in porch. You know, the ones you put over the picnic table and you screen up. You shut them and no one can get in. Well, we just had a tarp that you could sit under if it rained, but we didn't have the actual screen porch. But you'll find out why we ended up buying one. So we drove to the Smoky Mountains, loaded up all our gear. You know, we had the stove and all that stuff, lanterns. We had been camping a lot now. So we went there, and Bill had investigated it. So we drove there. But it was funny because once we got into the mountains to go to the national park where we were camping, it's all uphill because it's hence the Smoky Mountains. So we're driving, and all of a sudden the car is kind of like chug 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 chug, and we're like, I'm looking at Bill, I'm like, are we gonna have to get out and push the yellow Datsun up the hills? And he's like, God, I hope not. So he slowed down because that car was struggling with us and all the gear and its age. It was like a chugging up those hills, and we were getting a little concerned, but finally made it. Get into the camping place, set up our gear, meet a couple people. Seemed pretty cool, right? So we're like, awesome. And so the first night went pretty good, and then we're like, the next day we were going to be like, okay, let's explore. Well, what we found out first, right out of the gate, And I'm like, Bill, you didn't investigate this? They had bathrooms, of course, but no showers. We're staying at a national park. Now, this was in '83, so I don't know what they have now. So don't sit out there and go, hey, I've been there. They do. They might now, but back in '83, they did not. No warm water, which means if you're staying for a week, I go, where are we going to shower? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, because you know, this could get kind of gross. So somebody told us, oh, there's this really nice stream. Just go down this path and it's going to take you to a nice stream and you can bathe there. Okay. So the next day, it was a little chilly. And because you're up in the mountains. And we went to the stream and we checked it out. The water was fucking ice cold. I mean, ice cold. I said, you want me to lather up in this thing, Bill? And he's like, Bill, sweet Bill, always trying to find the good in it. Well, if we do it quickly. And I'm like, well, thank God it's just you and I on this trip. Because if we start to stink, well, oh well. We're married. Who cares, right? So that day we tried to wash up as best we can. And while we were walking back, I had turned my ankle, which back then I had played a lot of racquetball back then, and I had sprained my ankle several times back in the late '70s and early '90s, or early '80s, and it was the same ankle. So once you do that, you got to be so careful. So I did. I was turning around to do something, and I misstepped on a rock or something. You know how it goes, and you hit the bone on the ground. Yeah, I did that. So I'm like, all right, it wasn't terrible, but it was sore. It was a little swollen. It wasn't terrible. I had done a lot worse before. Sometimes sprains are worse than breaks, in my opinion. I've never broke my ankle, but I've sprained it a few times where it's. Remember, I told you the story last week about me being drunk and falling off the train. Sprained my ankle. So, anyways, um, it started to rain. Now this is the second day we're there, and we're like, ah, shoot. So we're like, okay, and then it was getting a little chilly and spring, so it was at night and it was raining. So we sat under our tarp and we're playing cards, right? So we're playing cards, him and I having a couple of cocktails, and the fire is sort of going because it's raining. So we kept putting wood on it, but we were under the tarp, so not in front of the fire. And all of a sudden I was like, what was that? And he's like, what? I said, I had shorts on, but a sweatshirt and stuff. And I said, something brushed up against my legs. So we looked under the table. We had the flashlight, nothing there. And he goes, oh, it was probably the garbage bag. The wind probably brushed it. And I said, oh, all right. So we're playing, and all of a sudden I go, something brushed me again. And he's like, no. And we look down. He gets the flashlight. Oh my God, what's staring back at us? A big old skunk. Yes, I said skunk. We're like, shit. So we did. I said, well, he's like, whoa, don't rush. I said, you're right. So we slowly got up out of the picnic table, got out of there. We're backing up. And then Bill, I said, turn off the flashlight. So he turned off the flashlight. And then now we're standing in the rain. The skunk is under the dry tarp. And Bill flashes the flashlight. Maybe he's gone. He looks and he flashes it right at him, and the guy's looking at us, and the tail starts to go up. I go, turn it off. He's pissed. So he turns it off. So we're standing there. I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with this scenario. We're standing in the rain, and that little fucker is warm and dry. So we ran up to the bathrooms, and we were talking. We were out of the rain. We're talking like, what are we gonna do? And I said, well, let's just get in the tent. Let's just play in there. So we got out of all our wet gear and got into the tent, and that was that for the night. The next day, it was somewhat nice out, and we started talking to a neighbor next to us. And they said, oh, yeah, skunks are very prevalent around here. And we're like, yeah, we know. We saw one last night. And he said, listen, they're not going to spray you unless you, go after them. They're so used to people. They're just looking for food. So just don't do anything stupid, they'll be fine, right? We're like, okay. So that night we started partying with some other campers, and we were partying with them and then the people across from us, and they had a little kid. And it was a little later in the afternoon, and they put their kid down for a nap, and we're all sitting there, and we're talking. We had a fire going, it was early. in the late afternoon, but it was a little chilly, so we had a fire going, and we were talking to the people. And all of a sudden, I look over and I go, "There's a skunk circling your tent." They had a small tent. It was just three of them, two adults and this baby. And they're like, "What?" I go, "Yeah, he's circling your tent." And all of a sudden, we look over, and he goes into the tent because they had the door open, and because we were right. I mean, we were close, so they want to make sure they could hear the baby and stuff. And we're like, "Oh my God, the skunk's in the tent with the baby." That turned out to be okay. So then that night, Bill's like, "Hey, I've been reading. I went to the office and got some stuff, and there's supposed to be this beautiful waterfall." And he said, "But it's kind of a hike." And I said, "Well, what kind of a hike? Remember, I've got a bum ankle." And he's like, "Oh, it's like 3 miles." And I'm like, "All right." He goes, "But it's supposed to be spectacular." I'm like, "All right." So the next day we get up, and my leg was it because it was starting to get really chilly there, and it was raining a lot at night. It was very damp. And by the way, we found out this was the rainy season. When we found that, I gave a look at Bill like, "Really? We're here on the rainy season." So it pretty much rained after that every day. So it was chilly and damp, and so my ankle was really bothering me. So we went for this walk. He's like, "Honey, it's going to be so worth it." And I know a lot of you've heard this story, and I'm like, "All right." So we're starting now again, Smoky Mountains. So that means you're not going to be walking like this, you're going to be walking like this, right? Of course. So, and the terrain was pretty rugged. It was very uneasy. And I'm like, so the first mile, I'm like, okay. Then we're into the second mile, and or whatever we thought we were into the second mile. And I'm like, "Are we getting close?" Because then I started getting cranky because it was chilly, it was drizzling on and off, my ankle hurt, and he's like, "No, no, 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 come on, we can do it." And we didn't pass anybody on any trail, so that should have been a red flag right there to get the hell out of there. It wasn't worth it. So I was pretty much bitching the whole way at this point, and he's, Bill, he's trying to make light of it. "Oh, come on, it's going to be so worth it. And you're going to be able to say you did this hike up in the mountains, and it was, 3 miles. Turns out it was 5, but that's okay. Don't worry about it." So, we're going and we're going, and all of a sudden, he's like, "Shush." And I go, "What?" And he's like, "Listen." And we could hear, so you knew we were. I said, "Oh my God, we're close." He goes, I go, "We have to be, Bill, because this going straight up the hill is getting on my nerves." And he's like, "Well, look at it this way. When we go down, it'll all be down when we leave. So it'll be much easier, right, honey?" I give him a look like, "What?" So he goes, "I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go ahead and see, get a, maybe find a good spot so we can sit and enjoy the because the sun was starting to peek out a little bit, but through all the trees." And he's like, I'll go ahead. Just take your time. Don't worry, I will." So, of course, I'm bitching more, but this better be freaking worth it, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, he comes back, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" "I'll be right there." And he goes, "No, you know what?" He goes, it's farther away." And I said, "What do you mean it's farther away? We can kind of hear it." And he goes, "Yeah, but I got pretty far up there and I could kind of see it, and it was far away. So you know what? Your ankle's bothering you. Why don't we just turn around and go back before we keep walking?" And I'm like, "Well, no, we walked all this way," which we did not know was a complete 5 mile. No, it was, what was it? It was like almost three going up. Yeah, so 6. It would have been 3 up, 3 down. No, I think it was 5 going up. Anyways, who cares? and and he's like, "No, no, honey, you know what? Let's just go back down. You know what? Because I don't know how much farther we're gonna have to walk and this and that." And I'm like, and I'm looking at him, and Bill was never a good liar, just never good. He never lied, but if he tried to, and not that he was lying, but he was kind of fibbing to, as it turns out, to save his ass. And I'm like, "No, let's go see it." And I said, "Did you see it?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's there." And I said, "Well, what are you sighing about?" And he's like, "Okay, come on. It's right up here." And I said, "Okay." And he's like, "Now don't get mad." And I said, "Don't get mad." I said, "Well, why?" And he's like, "You'll see."
So we're walking, I'm chugging up, and I'm just, I'm huffing and puffing because I was smoking too then, a lot probably. And excuse me, I'm coughing now because of the allergies I have in Vegas. And anyways, and I just took a 2 mile walk, so my allergies are acted up. Anyways, get back to Smoky Mountains, Lynn. Stay on subject. He goes, it's just up here. Now remember, don't get mad. And I keep looking at him. I'm like, what would I be mad about? Except for my foot is now really killing me because it really was a treacherous, straight up hike. We get up there and I can hear it, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so worth it. And we get up there, and I look, and here's this waterfowl, and in the middle of it, it's got a full sized refrigerator in the middle of it. I kid you not. Now, first, I'm looking like something's not working here. I'm looking at it, and he's like, it's pretty, isn't it? And I'm like thinking, is he not seeing the refrigerator, or is there something wrong with me? I'd had a few beers last night, and I'm thinking, okay. And I said to him, you do see there's a refrigerator in the middle of this. Oh, dun, 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 dun. You see the tail? It's back. See the tail over here? Oh, now it's going to come over here. Dun, 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 dun. Stop. I always have to stop when he does it. Hey, why don't you join the show? Hey, there he is. Say hi. Hi. Say hi, guys. All right. Shithead. Anyways, back to stop interrupting my story. Anyways, so I'm like, okay, now you see there's a refrigerator. And he's like, yeah, 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 I do. And I'm like, how the F did, now we're way up there. I mean, your ears are popping as you're walking. So you're up in the smoke, way, way up in the Smoky Mountains. And I'm like, how the hell did that big ass refrigerator get here? I mean, it was right in the middle. So it's flowing. And it must have been stuck on a rock or something. And it was just sitting there. It made me think, oh my God, it's like white trash at this beautiful waterfall, which actually wasn't all that beautiful. It really, minus the refrigerator, it was a waterfall, okay? I've seen better waterfalls. I'm just saying. Ooh, I'm just saying. That's a segment coming up too in a couple days. Anyways, back to so I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and he's like, I am so sorry. And I'm like, we laughed. We sat down and laughed for about 10 minutes. I mean, what are you going to do, right? Except the bad part was I sat down and my ankle stiffed up and it really hurt. And I said, you're carrying me back down the hill. And he's like, oh, what? And I'm like, yeah, because I can't do this. And he's like, yes, you can. I'm like, no, you owe me. I walked up this mountain to see a beautiful waterfall, and I'm seeing a waterfall with a fucking refrigerator in the middle of it. No, I'm climbing on your back and you're carrying me down. And he's like, you're kidding, right? And I'm like, I was, but I was trying to get him. And so we get up, and so that's the waterfall story. We did walk back down, and then that night, a bunch of us were sitting around the campfire. One of the few times it wasn't raining, because it pretty much rained and was cold the whole week. So taking a shower or a bath in that stream was not happening. So I was like, we're getting a little stinky and ripe here. So we were sitting there. I said, let's smell like burning wood. It's better than what we're smelling like now. So we're sitting around there having some cocktails with the neighbors who had, come up for what they thought was going to be a beautiful week. Was not. And they were telling us about the bears. You have to be careful. Well, sure enough, we were talking about the skunks. Sure enough, a couple skunks come walking over. Kid you not. They sit down and they're like enjoying the fire with us. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Two skunks sitting there. I said, should we offer them a beer or what? I mean, it was hilarious. So, we kind of hiked around in between the rainstorms. And at one point, it was so cold and wet, we ended up, to keep warm, Bill laid on top of me. None of that, people. Get that your mind out of the gutter. He was in his sleeping bag, I was in mine, and he was laying on top of me just to try to keep us warm. After this trip, we invested in
can't remember, did we get blow up beds or did we get the cots? I don't remember, but after this, we were no longer ever sleeping on the floor. And so then it was time to go home. And on the way home, he wanted to stop and see his brother in Carbondale. He lived there. He was out of college now, but he lived there. So, because he went to Southern. So we did. And I was like, normally I'd be like, no, I want to go home. But I was like, does he have a shower? And he's like, I'm pretty sure he has a shower, Lynn. So we get there and we're both just looking at him and we're like, we need a shower desperately. So we got the shower. Next day we got back into the car and that poor car we beat it up because going up that mountain took its toll on this car. It was chugging home, chug a luggage. It was like the Flintstones yabba dabba doo car where you get in it, yabba dabba doo, let's go, come on, Lynn, hurry up. So that was our Smoky Mountains trip. There's some things here and there that happen, but it was pretty funny. So I hope that made you laugh. Um, the other thing, so I want to tell you though a couple things. I heard this really really cool story today. I saw it, and I thought to myself, this is what I'm talking about: helping each other, helping and liking mankind. There was a cab driver in California who got a call to pick up a lady. I don't know if he was a cab driver or Uber. I think it might have been Uber. Got probably Uber. Called to pick up a 92-year-old lady to take her to the bank. And so she gets in the car and he's talking to her, and she was saying that she had to go to the bank to take some money out. And he's like, oh, okay. And he said she was kind of quiet at first, but then she started opening up because he was talking to her, talking to her, talking to her. And she admitted that the IRS had called her and said she owed $25,000 in back taxes. And she's like, so I'm going to the bank to get that money and pay him. And he's like, so he goes, ma'am, the IRS doesn't call and collect money. You didn't get anything in the mail? No. And he's like, so he kept talking to her and talking to her. And then he finally pulled over and he talked her into giving him the number. So he called the number, and it was, of course, fake. It was not the IRS. You hear about these scams all the time. And he's like, ma'am. And she wouldn't believe him. She's like, no, no one would ever do that. And he's like, ma'am, this is really serious. I'm feeling like somebody's taking advantage of you, and I don't want you um, she's like, take me to the bank. So he took her to the bank. She went in, and he was sitting there thinking, and he thought to himself, I know what I'm going to do. So she gets back in the car, and he goes, all right, I'll tell you what. He goes, you are a really nice lady, and would you humor me on the way home? And she's like, what? And he goes, there's a police station down the street. I want to stop in it, and I want to talk to somebody. And if they say it's legit, all good. Okay? And she's like, okay. So he goes there. He finally gets a cop. It took a while, he said. And then they talked. They both realized it's a scam. So then the cop came out and talked to the lady, and she's like, he said she was really embarrassed, but he saved this woman $25,000. Somebody he doesn't know, an Uber driver, and he was a middle-aged dude, and it just warmed my heart. I thought, oh my God. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. And he's like, well, you're older. We need to take care of our elders, and I will be there someday. So hopefully somebody will do for me if I do something that doesn't sound right. And she's like, so isn't that cool? That is really cool. I was like, right on, man. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing this show, is to make you smile, laugh, and to have a big heart for others. Smiling and laughing the last couple days has been a little rough for me. I've had a few hiccups and bumps in the road. I'm not going to get into too much detail because I'll probably get in more trouble. And it's tough. If you know me, I've had my bouts with depression on and off, on and off, on and off. And I'm kind of in that hole right now. So, but thinking about the YouTube show and thinking, I've had friends reach out to me and they're like, you're not doing the YouTube show anymore? And it really made me feel good. I know it's corny. There's no professionalism here. The stories are corny, all true. The songs are corny, as my son says. It's a little rough getting through those songs, Mom, which makes me laugh. But that's the idea, right? I said, you're missing the idea of the show. It's supposed to be corny, cheesy, funny, right? So I just want you guys to look forward to my show every day. So I'm back. I'm not letting anything stand in my way of doing what I want because I have been enjoying doing it. Last couple days I haven't had a lot of reason to smile, and today I almost killed myself driving, and I went through a red light. It's hard to explain. I have two stoplights in this one intersection that are literally right on top of each other. There's a light here, and then, okay, it's kind of hard. They're like this far apart. You know what I mean? They're half of a football field between each other. So when the green light turned in the farther one, I thought it was ours. I was very distracted. I went right through. Fortunately, I was paying attention then because there was a car coming right to my driver's side off the expressway and was about to hit me. So I swerved out of the way and then I pulled up to that car because they're looking at me like, what the fuck? And I pulled up and I said, I'm so sorry. So they pulled away. Everything was good. But I'm like, so I kind of came back and was like, okay, Lynn, stop being distracted, get your shit together, and let's get back because show people need to do their shows. Now, if I would have died in the car accident, I wouldn't be doing more shows, but I didn't. I'm right here. So I'm back. And tomorrow, don't forget, there's going to be a guest. You're not going to want to miss it. I mean, I've got a few other guests lined up, but this is the first one. So stay tuned for that. And I want to thank the people that regularly view this show. And I hope you tell people about it and you spread it around. Because remember, the goal is to make people happy, make people love each other again. Let's bring this United States back together because we're separate. There's no doubt about it, and everybody knows it. But I'm trying one YouTube at a time to do this again, right? Oh, and by the way, don't forget, if anybody sees Jeff Bridges hanging out with Mrs. Bridges, remember, I want 24 hours. That's it. So, if anybody's, you see him, say, yeah, I got a friend, and that would be great. I'd really like that. Rock and roll. So, I love you. Thanks for the support. I cannot tell you how much it means to me. It means a lot. And I am going to be better and ever each day. I'm going to get better and better and better again until I get right back on top of that horse. And then, when I start singing again, life is good. So that's coming. I got a couple songs for you guys. It'll be coming in a couple days, maybe tomorrow, but with the guest, I'm not sure if I'm going to have time. Okay? So I love you guys. Keep on rocking and rolling. And remember, if you can help somebody today, do it. Do it for me. And smile. This is the Vegas Baby Show with me,